Ping pong, also known by its significantly less cooler name, table tennis, is a tabletop sport originating in England in the late 1800s, with its earliest games making use of rounded champagne corks as the ball before the introduction of the celluloid ball in 1900. Odds are you've played some form of ping pong at least once at some point in your life, be it a full-size table or even some form of video game. Tennis, in general, as a video game, has been around as long as the concept of video games themselves. One of the earliest examples of such being 1958's Tennis for Two, and the more famous example being 1972's Pong. I'm not about to explain Pong to you, so let's just get to the point. It's currently August 2007, and a movie has just released. Balls of Fury, a comedy film starring Dan Fogler, his first lead role in a movie and someone with a wide variety of movie and TV roles both as an on-screen and voice actor. Also starring Christopher Walken, playing the movie's main villain, and is known for a multitude of other things that someone else has already cataloged. Along with George Lopez, best known for those times you fell asleep watching Nickelodeon and woke up with the TV still on at 2 in the morning. And because this is 2007, this somehow got a video game tie-in which came out not even a month after release based on what I was able to find. Balls of Fury for the Wii and Nintendo DS, the former of which is the subject of today's video. As some of you may know, I was working on a multi-game special which was going to cover a few games that, from my recollection, couldn't stand on their own for an entire video and posted this thumbnail teasing the 3. The first one being fairly obvious, the second one just showing a ping pong paddle and a ball, and the third looking like something out of those old ink blot tests. The second one was originally going to be Balls of Fury, but as I kept working on that section, I decided that spinning it off into its own video would make more sense. It didn't feel right sandwiching it between a game based on a children's toy, and a game that only a specific amount of New York children would know even exists if they were going to school during a specific time frame, and no, I'm not exaggerating any of that. In regards to the movie itself, I rewatched it as part of the research to prepare for that section of the video, and honestly, it's okay. It's not the greatest movie I've ever seen, it got a few laughs out of me, it's got some decent jokes scattered around, and it works really well as a background noise movie. Something to get together and watch with friends after you've had a few beers. It's definitely one of the movies I paid $10 for on iTunes, but not something I'd throw on my movie shelf. Now I'm sure some of you were aware of the movie's existence, but maybe not so much the game. I don't remember seeing any ads for it being pushed anywhere, I just remember it being on a discount shelf at the mall while I was out with family at the time, and the movie was still fresh in our minds, so we kinda just went, wow, a movie game. Balls of Fury is often considered one of the worst Wii games ever produced. The Wii is no stranger to shovelware's schlock. Besides its motion controls and first-party offerings, it's arguably one of the biggest things it's known for. Low-effort games that exist as a cash grab and nothing else beyond that. Today we're going to dig into Balls of Fury and explore what makes this game as bad as it is. Side note, I'm playing on a Wii U running custom firmware, and I don't remember having fun playing this on the real thing, so this should be fun. Get a good listen to this track because it's one of like 3 pieces of music in the whole game. Our title screen gives us a few options that we're able to choose from: exhibition, story, arcade, tournament, and trophy room. For the sake of simplicity, we're gonna run right into story mode. We're presented with what is probably meant to be a cutscene that gives us a brief synopsis of the earliest portions of the movie, with a young Randy Daytona about to face Carl Wolfstag in the 1988 Summer Olympics in a game of ping pong. Now, I'm going to show you 2 different clips of this first match because it's going to highlight a problem I noticed while playing this game that I'll discuss in more detail later. To start off with this pre-game screen, let's ignore the fact that the versus text on the ping pong ball doesn't look like it was warped correctly and look at our characters. Young Randy doesn't look terrible, but Carl? Good lord, what's wrong with his face? It looks like he ate sour candy before his picture was taken and is trying to hide it. Anyway, my first clip went mostly well, barring a few video issues. The screen kept blacking out at random points, making the footage difficult to use. You can see in this footage that the game is functioning pretty much fine. It's ping pong. Swing to the left, swing to the right. Don't overshoot and get more points than your opponent. I don't have to tell you how the game works. The game gives you at most 5 seconds to take it all in on the loading screens. Before moving on to the next level, I'm going to show you the same level after redoing all the connections to my capture card and to the computer. It looks like I left the controller alone and didn't do a single thing, but I promise you I was doing the exact same movements I was in the first clip. The game, for one reason or another, just refused to do anything, and I'm gonna tell you right now that my biggest regret while playing this was not having my desk mic on. After a couple back and forths, the game abruptly throws a loading screen at us and gives us a cutscene detailing the next few portions of the movie. Randy is knocked out, his dad is killed, he gets fired from his job, and he meets FBI agent George Lopez to participate in an underground ping pong tournament led by Fang. Now, this is very important, so pay attention, because the game makes special mention to note that nobody knows what Fang looks like, but, and I quote, they suspect he looks like George Takei, who is Mr. Sulu from Star Trek. Okay? On the next game, we're thrown into another match against the lowest quality textured shirt I've ever seen, even by Wii standards. I would also like to redact what I said about Carl. Just take a moment to absorb exactly what you're looking at here. This is supposed to be a recreation of a human being. Do you think Patton Oswalt knows about this 3D model? Do you think he knows what they've done to him? Holy crap. The bright side is we at least have a proper game to play to completion this time. Besides being standard off-the-shelf ping pong, the game actually does have a few things to make gameplay interesting to some extent. You have special moves activated by pressing the A button, which vary depending on the character you are playing as or against. As you rally the ball back and forth, you increase this meter off to the side, allowing you to stack up to 3 special moves at once, with each character having 2 unique moves related to rallying the ball or serving the ball. While playing as Randy, who is the only character you play as in story mode, you launch the ball as a high-speed fireball whenever you rally it back. While serving, the ball zigzags back and forth. There's also the ball doing a loop-de-loop, a similar one where the ball simply goes fast and low. The ball can also teleport and gravitate towards a specific area. There's also a taunt mechanic. And it looks like this. Tastes good! Yeah, I'm not going to be nice on this one. This would have to be the first video game you ever played in order to get messed up by it. Taunts play a line from the specific character you're playing as or against in the movie. If the opponent taunts, it shakes the screen around slightly and buzzes the Wii remote. If you taunt, it just plays the audio, at least in single player mode.
Have your grandma pull the car around.
If my memory serves me correctly, it shook your opponent's side of the screen in 2-player mode, but that requires someone else willing to play Balls of Fury on the Wii, and I can guarantee you beyond any matter of doubt that I was the only person on Earth for a brief period of time willing to actually play this game. Your gameplay, at least while playing as Randy, doesn't change much apart from the changes in difficulty. I didn't have too much of a hard time against the hammer, but besides that, a good portion of the game wasn't too harsh. I honestly wish I had more to say about it, but really, this is all the game is from this point on. Volleying the ball back and forth and occasionally doing power moves and taunts in a vain attempt to try and mess up the AI player. I'm gonna run through the remaining characters in the game because there's genuinely little I can say about them, and the real meat of this section comes from my overall experience throughout the story mode. After beating the hammer, you get thrown at Master Wong following another slideshow. Wong doesn't have much going for him barring a unique power attack, but it's still the same game we've been playing so far. Our next PowerPoint introduces us to Maggie Wong. We get confirmation that you're allowed to say ass in a game rated E10, and she, and I quote, uses the mystical lyrics of the greatest band ever, Def Leppard, to lift Randy's spirits and get him back to training. Okay, just one minute for a moment. I understand that being a Def Leppard fan is a big part of Randy's character in the movie. He's almost never not wearing a shirt featuring a band most of the time, and his paddle has the band's logo burned into it. The music from the band is featured throughout the movie and in a dance party at the end during the credits. I have nothing against Def Leppard, but Jesus Christ. That line is written like someone writing their first story has some kind of self-insert and wanted an excuse to gush about Def Leppard. Anyway, Maggie made me want to blow my brains out. Maggie's match had an unexpectedly high difficulty spike that seemingly came out of nowhere. Looking back on it, this feels like the game's way of treating Maggie like some kind of mid-game boss, but with no warning whatsoever. A number of problems rose from this match, mainly in the form of sensitivity. The game seems to have this bizarre problem with how the game registers movement. Somehow it is too sensitive and not sensitive enough. It's not constant, but when it happens, trust me, you will notice it. If you recall during the first level, I mentioned that it looked like I wasn't doing anything whatsoever but swore that I was. This level had the exact same issue, but in the opposite direction. There was a few moments where the game would make me swing even though I barely moved the Wii remote, forcing me to either lose a game or rush to do another swing to save myself, as well as the game not registering any movement at all despite me swinging the remote. As you can imagine, This happening during what is probably the hardest matchup to this point is extremely irritating. Imagine playing a racing game. You got a slight left turn coming up, so you lightly move the analog stick just enough to make the turn and still have control of the vehicle, but the game decides no and pulls a hard left and slams you into the wall. That was my experience. I decided to play this game using two different Wii remotes. The stock Wii remote I've had since I've got the system, and a Wii Remote Plus I got off eBay forever ago. For clarification, all the footage recorded for this particular section was done with the Wii Remote Plus. My experience was slightly more consistent on the stock Wii Remote, but then again, I have no reason to believe that this game is doing anything different with a Wii Remote that has better guts under the hood. This is likely me getting a better handle on the game's controls. Balls of Fury came out relatively early in the Wii's lifespan, and Wii Motion Plus did not exist until 2010. I highly doubt this game is being affected by it in any way. One thing I will say beyond certainty is that, regardless of controller, Maggie is not an easy fight whatsoever. I always play the hard difficulties because I feel it's more rewarding that way. That, and it gives me the opportunity to get more footage and potentially get a more entertaining video despite any, potential detriment to my sanity. That being said, I can't see a logical reason for the game to crank up difficulty this much at this point. It's the mid-game, not the end game. I'm not going to blame the game entirely though, there is some genuine skill issue here. I'm not afraid to admit that. I spun the ball off the table more than a few times. But it felt genuinely unfair more often than not. I'll discuss Maggie more later on, but we need to move on. I eventually managed to beat her and moved on to my next opponent, the dragon. Funnily enough, this match was the second easiest in my first run. She's the first match in the game that requires you to lead by 3 points rather than reach a set point limit. Nothing much else to say. Mild difficulty at best compared to the previous match. Randy is thrown into a dumpster despite the game never showing Randy getting thrown into the dumpster, and we're invited to Fang's house for a playdate. Terry Crews, Freddy Fingers, is our next opponent. Uneventful. His taunts sounded weirdly cut off, and I only found out after rewatching the movie that it was in fact cut off. He's supposed to call you a bitch at the end of this line.
Blow it out your ass. Blow it out your ass, bitch.
Yukito Nagasaki. Once again, more uneventful nonsense. Nothing special, just like Freddy. But also like Freddy, he had a very interesting taunt. Here it is. Me pressing the home menu button is the sole reason I regret not having a microphone on. I was 100% not prepared to hear that come out of my speakers, and it broke me. I was laughing like crazy. Yukito didn't have any lines in the movie, and every taunt is a line from the movie, and unless there was a deleted scene that I'm not aware of, I'm entirely convinced that the developers needed something for a taunt noise and caught up with one of the team members in the middle of fighting for their life on the toilet. After knocking out Yukito, we're presented with an image of George Lopez with an Uzi that honestly goes pretty hard, and we have our final match against Fang. Fang is up there as one of the most embarrassing final bosses I have ever had the privilege of playing, and it ties into one of my primary issues with Balls of Fury in general. Let me start off with that I do not expect a tie-in video game to follow a movie's plot verbatim, front to back. But I generally feel that if a movie plot can translate to a video game well, then having the game be as close to the movie as reasonably possible is a good goal to have when making a game of this nature. Not every plot is going to carry over cleanly, and sometimes you have to take things out from the movie, contradict what the final movie established, and maybe even add things that didn't happen in the movie to help the game feel more fleshed out. Hell, in some cases you can ignore the source movie entirely to tell your own story with the same characters in the same universe. Look at something like Men in Black, or in even rarer cases, you can even have it count as a sequel like Incredibles Rise of the Underminer. The movie came out in August, and the game came out in September. It is reasonable to assume that the game was developed alongside the movie to some extent. Balls of Fury takes some artistic license with at least one event from the source movie, notably the match against the Hammer, but otherwise the original movie's plot is almost entirely intact, at least on a basic storytelling level that is required to get the plot to move along. Unfortunately, this also translates into the gameplay and level progression. The execution is not great, and you can see this from the moment you start the story mode, but for the time being, let's get back to the final battle against Fang. In the context of the movie, Randy and Fang are wearing these electrified vests that gradually increase in power depending on who loses a point. In Fang's own words,
Nobody's ever made it past 3-zip.
in the game, this is translated to another match where there is no minimum score limit and you only have to get a 3-point lead, just like the match against the dragon. So guess how long it took me to beat Fang?
Have your grandma pull the car around. Have your grandma pull the car around.
The very first video I did on this channel, almost 3 years ago now, featured a boss battle that was finished in roughly a minute and a half, and even then, that was through some mild cheese. What you just witnessed was a cheeseless final battle that, from beginning to end, uninterrupted, completed in less than a minute. The sheer audacity of being able to beat Fang without so much as trying compared to literally everything else so far sprouted a genuine theory in my mind. In the movie, Fang had never finished his training with Master Wong, and as such does not have any ability to do a backhand whatsoever. When watching my first recording against him, every single time I won was on a backhand serve. My theory was that Fang will not score on any rally that requires him to do a backhand. Here's another fun fact, the only reason I even have a decent amount of footage of the story mode besides the Wii Remote experiment was because I wanted to see if this was somehow true and replayed the entire story mode all over again. In hindsight, I don't think anyone would have programmed such a little detail because, frankly, that's pretty stupid in a game context, but my second run of the boss left me speechless. I made a mental note to myself. No taunts, no special moves, raw ping pong swings, nothing else. And while Fang did have a few successful backhands this time, it happened again. 3-0. Without fail. Fang was beat without so much as a fragment of effort. I was speechless because, again, as any game would lead you to believe, this is the penultimate battle. Everything you do leads up to this. Why is it so pathetic? I'm sorry if I'm leaning into angry video game nerd at home territory with this, but I'm just genuinely confused. The game ends after this. You get a brief summary because the developers need to drop their paycheck off at the bank, Wong falls down an elevator shaft, and that's it. It's a borderline beat-for-beat retelling of the entire movie, and nothing changes. You get a goofy little congratulations screen saying how Randy has become the ping pong champion, but it's just an exaggeration because you just won the mode. Yippee! I can boil down my problems with Balls of Fury into two categories: presentation and consistency. How the game gives you the story is extremely, extremely, extremely weak, and the difficulty is bizarrely inconsistent. Let's start with breaking down how the game presents itself. This is a fancy way of calling it the visual section, but it's a little different compared to what I've done in the past. I'll start with the actual visuals, and despite everything so far, I actually do have something nice to say. Admittedly, there is some attention to detail that I can happily admit is nice to see in this game. The venues are definitely Wii quality, but are otherwise decent recreations of the various areas in the movie. Fang's little rec room what have you, featuring the paddles and ashes of the players he's killed, is my personal favorite. It's faithful to the movie location, right down to the little section housing the panda that's definitely not dead. Master Wong's Academy looks pretty good, and the high school gym where Randy faces the hammer is fairly well done. I noticed while playing the other modes that some characters have unique paddles specific to them, Fang being the most noticeable with his black and gold design, Randy's being more subtle with Def Leppard rules burned into the paddle, and Freddy's being a dual-sided black paddle with what looks like tape around the handle. It's small details that I absolutely appreciate seeing, but that said, let's talk about the character models. They're not great, at least when talking about the pre-rendered ones we see before every match. Both young and adult Randy, funnily enough, look the best out of everyone, but consider the competition. Carl looks off, the hammer looks like someone was trying to remember what they look like, Wong looks fine, Maggie looks like she was AI generated, the dragon looks fine, we have Terry Crews at home, Yukito Nagasaki is a character in this game, and Feng looks like they had a hard time getting the rights to use Christopher Walken's likeness outside of movie stills. The menus are as simple gets. They're functional, and I'm not even going to mention any music because it's generic and inoffensive. No notes for now. In regards to animation, I mean, it's there. Every character kind of just waddles in place like they really have to pee. Background characters have minimal movement or don't move at all, sometimes cycling through the same basic animation. I understand this is a weird thing to nitpick because they're background characters. They're supposed to populate a scene and give some life to it. My nitpicks are more in how Balls of Fury does it. This works in the room where you play against the dragon. There's these two guys that appear to be having a conversation, but in an area like the high school, there's this guy in the background who is forever dusting his shirt and nodding in place. Strangely enough, the room where you fight the dragon also has an example of a bad background character. This guy off to the right of the table. He's unchanging the entire time, and it's made worse by the fact that he seems to be on the same section of middle ground that the opponent is, so it's not like he's entirely in the background. He's off to the side, but he's very much visible and in your peripheral vision. To further emphasize my point, here are several clips of gameplay in this room layered on top of each other just to show you how static he is. I even went the extra mile by going into Dolphin just to make sure this guy wasn't just some weirdly bent PNG. He's a full 3D model and he doesn't do anything. For some reason, he's allowed to exist, and these guys playing poker off to the right got vaporized into cosmic dust. There are some animations that happen when you win a round coming from the opposing player, which, again, is a nice extra detail as each character has a different animation that can be seen, like slamming a table or genuinely looking disappointed. What I found extremely shameless, though, is that the game does in fact have a trailer. You can view it on the disc. You know, the trailer for the game to sell you the game that you already bought. Made worse by the fact that these game models are actually animated somewhat and they don't look that bad. They could have done more with the game models, they just chose not to do that in the actual game. There's also a movie trailer which happily tells you along with the cover of the box that the movie is happily available on DVD and HD DVD. The movie format that is sure to give you bang for your buck in terms of watching high definition movies at home. Never mind, though speaking of images and video on a disc, let's talk about the cutscenes. Calling them cutscenes is me being nice because these are not cutscenes. These are slideshows and explanations. I was only half joking when I called one of these a PowerPoint earlier. I made more engaging presentations in Office 2003 with every piece of clip art and sound effect ever. For God's sake, I mean, you already had access to footage from the movie to some capacity. Is it too much to ask that you at least have a short clip on the disc, or even some kind of FMV, or even a brief animation with the models that you already have shown as in the game's trailer? It's not like the whole game is eating up that much space. They could have easily fit trimmed clips or something. The ISO is barely over half a gig, and Nintendo was using full-size DVD by this point. You have at least 4 more gigabytes to work with on the magic plastic frisbee. Why not make use of it? The whole damn movie can fit on one. Why do we get nothing but photographs on what is technically the same thing? I feel like I'm complaining about this the wrong way. My main problem with the cutscenes is that they're beat-for-beat retellings of the movie for the most part. And yes, I am well aware of what I said earlier regarding a movie plot translating to a game plot, but that's not what I have a problem with in terms of this game. What I have a problem with is how Balls of Fury presents its story this way. I have problems with how Balls of Fury does things in general. I've played other movie games before, Chicken Little, Kung Fu Panda, Madagascar. I'm well aware that these are 3D action games based on animated movies, not the live-action sports comedy that Balls of Fury is, but my point is that these games at least followed their source movie's plot as much as reasonably possible in an engaging way. I finished each of these games and, at least as a kid, I remember having fun playing them and enjoying them for what they were. It actually felt like an attempt was made at adapting the movie to game form while giving you a decently enjoyable experience on top. What Balls of Fury does is present a hyper-condensed version of its plot through slideshows in order to move the game along and get you to the next ping pong match, giving you pretty much just the necessary information to tell you the story as quickly as possible while having to set up for the next match. This wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if it were not for two things. Number one, the storytelling is boring. I don't have a problem with games presenting the story this way. I've been playing games that are older than me for a very long time now. But if you're going to seemingly intentionally limit yourself to an extremely simplistic form of storytelling, there has to be something that makes it interesting. Dialogue between characters, maybe some basic animation, literally anything to keep my attention beyond having dan.fogler.jpg on the screen with a blurb of text. I almost want to edit Subway Surfers onto the sides of every cutscene for the rest of this video just to put something interesting to watch. I can't believe I'm about to do this, but Balls of Fury is far from the first game to present its cutscenes this way. Look at Toy Story. I played Toy Story on the PC back in the day, but that game at least had the excuse of being made in the mid-90s and was limited by the hardware capabilities of the time. It's presented in a somewhat similar fashion, the only difference being that it's treated more like you're reading a story with the dialogue exchanges rather than just having the events of the story summarized in front of you. Once again, this was being done in the mid-90s. This is 2007, and while I understand that the Wii is basically just a GameCube in a trench coat and mustache, the only excuses for this that I can even think of are time and budget, because the Wii is more than capable of doing more than this. I'd argue the very first level was the worst about it because it presents itself like everything else you see going forward. Young Randy versus Wolfstag. After a couple back and forths, you're smacked out of nowhere with a loading screen and given a cutscene detailing the latter half of the movie's opening. It doesn't even treat itself like a tutorial, it's just like any other level. Zero build up, zero warning, it just happens. 1 minute you're playing ping pong and the next minute you're staring at a group photo with a gang. If this is the part where Randy gets knocked out mid-match, at least show me in the game when he gets knocked out mid-match. I want to see what happens. I want to see the events lead up to this unfold in front of me. I want to see this kid eat shit over a fence. The entire way the game feeds the story to you is just bland and lifeless. Still images and blurbs of text detailing movie events, all playing an amalgamation of every single rock track you can't quite remember the name of, but heard on the radio a few times. This wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that various jokes from the movie are sprinkled in here too, which brings me to my second issue. Let's ignore the quality of the movie for 5 minutes and focus on the fact that it is a comedy movie. Say what you want about Balls of Fury in terms of its writing, its direction, the quality of the jokes, the type of humor it has. Say what you want about anything regarding this movie, but let's focus on one key detail. Balls of Fury is a comedy. Balls of Fury is a comedy movie. By nature of it being a movie, there is a general expectation that you are going to see jokes, as well as hopefully get a laugh from the deliveries of the actors telling jokes. The scene after Randy beats the dragon and gets tossed into a dumpster by the cheering crowd genuinely got a laugh out of me. It's a half-decent joke. Having this joke described to me on a still image of a crying Chinese kid does not hit the same way. You can regurgitate jokes verbatim all you want in your game, but they mean nothing if there's no attempt at actually telling the joke. Sometimes I like to write down visual jokes in my script, and this is mainly to help me during editing when I'm trying to put something together in DaVinci. But I would never just put down the description of a joke and call it a day by showing text on a screen. Let me ask you this. What makes more sense in terms of a joke? Wong monologuing about how a good ping pong player needs to be aware of their surroundings only to immediately fall down an elevator shaft mid-sentence like a Looney Tunes character? Or the game outright telling you, Wong accidentally falls down an elevator shaft while giving Randy advice. He's okay, on top of a picture of what is the happiest group of people ever. This is the part where you show me Wong falling down the elevator shaft. This is not the part where I see George Lopez clapping. I'm not asking this game to go out of its way to make me laugh. I don't want the game to do that for me because that's not why I'm here. I'm here to play ping pong, and the story is there to push the game along. What I am saying is the visual joke works better with an actual visual element. Don't tell me Randy is getting thrown into the dumpster. Show me Randy getting thrown into a dumpster. Don't tell me a mysterious Asian man that invites Randy to Fang's tournament can't find his way back to the highway. Show me the mysterious Asian man coming back to ask for directions. Now, translating a visual joke to a written form can work, but you need more detail beyond what feels like an essay being half-assed to get a C grade. I need a reason to actually pay attention, sit down, and watch the damn cutscene. It is just as much a part of the game as the actual interactive portion itself. Make me want to keep playing this game and continue this story. Make me care enough to keep playing. How can I reasonably be expected to keep playing the story mode if I don't care? Oh, who the f*** am I kidding? It's Balls of Fury. My last issue is gonna have its own section, and that is... If there's one thing I noticed throughout the game during my entire time playing it, is that this game is not consistent at all when it comes to difficulty. Once again, I played it on hard, but the game seemed to do whatever it wanted most of the time. This was evident in not just the story mode, but the adjacent game modes like Arcade and Exhibition as well. In any other video I would have covered them as well, but it's just more of the same. Exhibition is just a singular match against the AI or another player, Arcade is just a ladder mode with the same ping pong games you've already played, Tournament is Tournament. I legitimately got more fun screwing around on the character select screen in Arcade mode by doing this.
Blow it out your ass. Blow it out your ass.
I already discussed my gripes with story mode, but let's come back to that and focus on Maggie Wong. There is absolutely zero reason for Maggie to have been as difficult as she was, barring my inability to play properly in some cases. Her primary special, and by extension Randy's, is straight up broken. Maggie shares the same fireball thing that Randy has, and yeah, it doesn't feel so good when the shoe is on the other foot. I wouldn't be too annoyed by this if it were not for the fact that Maggie was seemingly able to reflect my fireballs 9 times out of 10 no matter what I did. Meanwhile, damn near every single attempt I made at reflecting Maggie's ended in failure. On the few occasions I did manage to do it, it required me to essentially be trying to predict when it would happen, leaving me with what felt like less than a second in order to react to hit the ball back. I use the phrase predict because pressing the A button causes flames to appear around your special meter signifying, yeah, I'm gonna do a special move next, but it doesn't do that when you're playing against the AI. There's zero indication of when the AI is gonna do a special move. It's basically on you to be on your toes and predict when a special move is going to happen. There's no warning or heads up. You have all the flashy graphics in the world for when you are gonna do a special move, but not when the opponent is. How is that fair? Does that seem fair to you? Because that doesn't seem fair to me. If this were me against a real person, I'd think it's extremely unfair because my opponent basically gets a giant neon sign that says I'm about to do something different, meanwhile I'm up shit creek before I even know what's going on. If this game showcased that Maggie was a mid-game boss, I wouldn't be complaining nearly as much, because okay, I get it, this is not meant to be an easy match. This is clearly some type of boss battle, but the game doesn't do that. Every single match is presented the exact same way. Every single time. And while I will happily say that this game did feel like it actually got more difficult with time, it simply doesn't know how hard it needs to be at what moments. What makes the primary villain of the game a significantly weaker opponent than someone you fight in the middle of the game? Why is she such a pain in the ass versus the guy who literally kills people? More importantly, why is something like this halfway through the game? If you're gonna put a fight like this, it would be better saved for something, say, oh, I don't know, closer to the end, especially because not only you would have the opportunity to change up the gameplay you've experienced up to this point, you'd also get to translate a major event in the movie from the main character's perspective. Let's pretend I'm one of the developers. I've already put Maggie in there somewhere at least once. If I had to put a significantly more difficult match against her somewhere else in this game, where would I put her? Easy. The fight before Feng. Why? Because around here is one of the movie's more involved scenes between Randy and Maggie, and in the real game is relegated to text on a screen. During this moment, Maggie is subbed in for what is supposed to be a match against Carl. Carl gets mad and is killed because he is annoying and nothing of value is lost. This results in Maggie and Randy essentially having the longest matches they can in order to not let the other one get killed. How would I treat this scene in a game context? Simple. Make it the one match in the game where your goal isn't to get points, but rather volley the ball back and forth as much as possible to run out a timer, or to volley the ball back and forth a specific amount of times before the game ends and moves on to the next level. The game already did an abrupt loading screen jump scare out of the gate, surely they can do another one here. Speaking of weird difficulty spikes and dips, I noticed something similar within the other game modes too, but the game fluctuating between actually really difficult to practically giving away the win to you. Once again, with any game mode like this, there is usually meant to be a general expectation of increasing difficulty, or at least a consistent difficulty throughout, and that's not present here. I originally planned to run through the arcade mode in its entirety, but to be honest, what's the point? It's more of the same, and I didn't even bother going through the rest of it. Not like I could if I wanted to anyway. I got around 4 matches deep before the game decided to hit me upside the head with Randy, because big surprise, his fireball was just as annoying as Maggie's. I wanted to run through the entire thing from beginning to end, but I gave up after around 45 minutes. I did not want to play this game anymore. The match you're watching right now was the point I put the remote down, shut off my Wii U, and packed it back up. Balls of Fury went back on the shelf, and I've been playing Yakuza 0 to occupy my brain with literally anything else. Let's wrap this up. I'm just gonna say it. Don't bother with the game. Don't bother seeking it out. Don't bother emulating it. You're better off just watching the movie. If you want the best Balls of Fury experience possible, just watch the movie. You'll have a far more enjoyable experience watching it than you ever will by playing this game front to back, because it's not even ironically enjoyable. Don't get me wrong, there's some silly things in the game that did get a laugh out of me, but in terms of actual enjoyment from playing it, I can safely say was slim to none. I'm sorry for bringing up Men in Black 8 billion times, but at least with that game, I got some ironic enjoyment out of how crummy that game was in hindsight. It was a trash heap, but some of the things that made it bad made it fun, or at least enjoyable to talk about. Here, the things that make Balls of Fury bad make it bad. It's not fun talking about Balls of Fury as a video game, and that's probably the worst thing I can say about it. This game is not fun to talk about. I'm dead serious, by the way. Hop onto Prime Video or whatever, rent the movie for $5, watch it, and move on with your life. I'm not going to tell you you're going to like the movie or not. It's a mid-2000s comedy film. Lower your expectations, order a pizza, grab an adult beverage, sit down, watch grown men play with balls. If you want to play ping pong, scrape together a Wii Remote Plus and get yourself a copy of Wii Sports Resort. The ping pong in that is not only infinitely more enjoyable, it actually feels like you're playing ping pong. Better yet, get the boys together and play some actual ping pong. Outside of sports stuff, if you want an honest-to-god enjoyable Wii experience, there are some good games outside of the first-party stuff if you know where to look. Rabbids Go Home is one that I see people sing praises for, which is funny considering it's the Rabbids if you know anything about their reputation. Personally, I loved that game. Genuinely one of my favorite Wii games of all time. Seriously, go play Rabbids Go Home, it is genuinely good. I've got nothing left to say. All I want to do is lay down and do something I know that I'm gonna enjoy that's not this dumbass game. I'll see you guys later when I finish my playthrough of Serious Sam. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you had the misfortune of playing this game in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for future videos, and to check out the reviews playlist link on screen. I'm Mr. Max. I'll see you next time. Whenever that may be.